The great crystal chamber floated in the void above Zephyros Prime, its walls shimmering with the light of distant stars. Inside this massive structure, beings from across the galaxy gathered around a circular table that seemed to stretch forever. The Galactic Dominion Council was in session, and today they would choose their next target for expansion. Ambassador Veltar stood at the center of the chamber, his tall blue form casting shadows across the holographic display that showed a small blue and green world. His 6 arms moved gracefully as he spoke, pointing to different parts of the planet that rotated slowly before them. The other council members leaned forward in their seats, their various forms creating a strange collection of shapes and colors in the dim light. "Honored members of the council," Veltar began, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had done this presentation many times before. "I present to you our next conquest. The 3rd planet of a yellow star system inhabited by a species that calls itself human and their world Earth." The planet continued to spin before them, showing vast oceans and 7 continents covered in green and brown patches. Cities glowed like tiny dots of light across the surface, connected by thin lines that the humans used for transportation. From space, it looked peaceful and defenseless. "These humans are remarkably primitive," Veltar continued, waving one of his hands to change the display. Now it showed human spacecraft, small and crude compared to the sleek ships of the Dominion fleet. They have only recently discovered fusion power, and their weapons are still based on throwing metal projectiles at high speed. Their fastest ships take months to travel between planets in their own system. Council leader Morden, a massive creature with gray skin and glowing red eyes, rumbled with what might have been laughter. "How primitive indeed. Do they even have energy shields?" "None whatsoever," Veltar replied with obvious pleasure. "Their ships are protected only by metal plates. A single plasma bolt from our smallest fighter could destroy their largest vessel. But what makes them perfect for conquest is not just their weak technology." The display changed again, now showing images of human cities with tall buildings and busy streets. Humans moved through the scenes like tiny insects, going about their daily lives without any idea that beings from distant stars were watching them. "They fight constantly among themselves," Veltar explained, pointing to areas on the map that glowed red. "Wars rage across their world over resources, territory, and something they call religious beliefs. They cannot unite even when facing common threats. Their governments spend more time arguing with each other than preparing for any real danger." Fleet Commander Zexhai, whose reptilian features made him look fierce even when relaxed, studied the information with professional interest. His long military career had taught him to look for potential problems in any conquest, but he could find none here. The humans had no unified military, no advanced weapons, and no experience fighting against superior technology. "How many battle fleets will we need?" Zexhai asked, though he already knew the answer would be small. "2 should be sufficient," Veltar replied. "Perhaps 3 if we want to ensure absolutely no resistance." Their entire military force consists of primitive aircraft and surface vessels. They have no orbital defenses, and their space-based assets are limited to communication satellites and scientific equipment. The other council members murmured their approval. This would indeed be an easy conquest, perhaps the easiest in recent memory. The humans had resources that the Dominion needed, including vast quantities of water and a variety of useful minerals. More importantly, the planet's location would give them a perfect base for expanding into this region of the galaxy. "What about their population?" asked Councillor Jexmal, whose insect-like features twitched with curiosity. "Are they suitable for labor forces?" "Extremely suitable," Veltar answered. "They are physically strong, breed quickly, and seem capable of learning simple tasks. Current population is approximately 7 billion, which should provide more than enough workers for our mining and construction projects. Those we don't need can be relocated to less habitable worlds." As the council members discussed the details of the invasion, none of them paid much attention to one small detail in the human data files. Deep in the information about human history was a long list of wars, conflicts and battles that stretched back thousands of years. If any of them had looked closely, they might have noticed that humans had a remarkable ability to adapt their fighting methods to face any enemy, no matter how superior that enemy appeared to be. Meanwhile, far away on the blue world they were discussing, Colonel Jake Morrison sat in an underground facility buried deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. Banks of computers surrounded him, their screens showing data from satellites and deep space monitoring stations scattered throughout the solar system. For the past 3 days, these instruments had been detecting something unusual. "Lisa, come. Look at this," Jake called to Dr. Lisa Carter, who was working at a nearby console. Her expertise in analyzing space-based phenomena had made her invaluable to the Deep Space Monitoring Initiative, a secret program that few people knew existed. Lisa walked over and studied the data on Jake's screen. The numbers didn't make sense at first, but as she traced the patterns, a cold feeling began to grow in her stomach. "These aren't asteroids," she said quietly. "No, they're not," Jake agreed. "The mass readings are too uniform and they're moving in perfect formation. Something big is coming our way from beyond Neptune, and whatever it is, it wasn't built by nature." Dr. Carter ran the calculations again, hoping she had made an error. The results were the same. Multiple objects, each larger than anything humanity had ever built, were approaching the solar system at speeds that should have been impossible. Their trajectory would bring them directly to Earth. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "Based on their current speed and course, approximately 6 days, Lisa replied. "Maybe 7 if they slow down as they approach." Jake reached for his secure communication system and began typing a message that would be sent to military leaders around the world. The message was simple but terrifying. Unknown objects approaching Earth. Clearly artificial, intent unknown but potentially hostile, within hours. Admiral Ben Parker was reading that message in his office at AIN-ORAD as the head of Earth's integrated defense systems. He had always known this day might come. Humanity had been listening to radio signals from space for decades, hoping to find signs of intelligent life. Now it seemed that intelligent life had found them first. The Admiral looked out his window at the peaceful sky above Colorado and wondered if humanity was ready for what was coming. Their weapons were designed to fight other humans, not aliens, with technology that might be centuries ahead of their own. But as he began making calls to activate Earth's defense forces, Admiral Parker felt something that the Galactic Dominion Council would never have expected from a primitive species facing impossible odds. He felt ready to fight. The Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of metal and energy. Massive ships materialized in the darkness beyond Earth's moon, their hulls gleaming with exotic materials that reflected starlight in colors that had no names. The largest vessels stretched for kilometers, bristling with weapon systems that could crack planets and turn stars into ash. Commander Zexhai stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the main display. The blue marble looked even more beautiful than the reconnaissance images had suggested, with white clouds swirling over vast oceans and green continents. It would make an excellent addition to the Dominion's territory, and the conquest should be completed within hours. "Open a communication channel to the planet," Zexhai ordered. His communications officer, a thin creature with tentacles instead of arms, worked quickly at the control panel. This was always the commander's favorite part of any conquest. The moment when a primitive species realized how helpless they truly were. The channel opened with a burst of static, then cleared to reveal a human face on the screen. The being looked remarkably similar to several other species the Dominion had conquered, except for the strange fur growing on top of its head and the determined expression in its small eyes. "This is Captain Roy Davis of the Earth Defense Force," the human said in a voice that carried no trace of fear. "Unknown vessels, you are in violation of Earth territorial space. State your intentions or withdraw immediately." Zexhai blinked his large yellow eyes in surprise. In over 300 conquests, no species had ever demanded that he state his intentions. They usually began begging for mercy the moment they saw his fleet. He looked around his bridge, seeing the same confusion on the faces of his crew. The Commander quickly recovered from his shock and activated his translation systems. "Primitive beings of Earth," he began, using the standard domination speech he had given so many times before. "I am Fleet Commander HFY of the Galactic Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be quick. Resist and your suffering will last for generations." He expected the human to fall to the ground in terror or perhaps begin pleading for his people's lives. Instead, Captain Davis looked directly into the camera with those strange small eyes and said something that no species had ever said to a Dominion fleet. "Go to hell." The communication channel went dead. HFY stared at the blank screen, trying to process what had just happened. Around him, his bridge crew looked equally confused. The translator must have malfunctioned, because surely no primitive species would dare to refuse a Dominion ultimatum. "Sir," his sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting movement from the human vessels." On the tactical display, HFY could see the pathetically small human fleet moving into attack positions. Their ships were tiny compared to his dreadnoughts, like insects buzzing around giants. Each of his battleships carried enough firepower to destroy their entire force in minutes. "They're actually going to fight us," HFY said, his voice filled with disbelief. "Ready all weapons. We'll end this quickly and send a message to any other humans who might think of resisting." The first human ships reached weapons range and opened fire. HFY watched the tactical display, expecting to see his shields absorb the primitive attacks without any effort. Instead, alarms began blaring throughout his flagship as explosions rocked the massive vessel. "Report!" HFY roared. "Direct. Hits on decks 7 through 12, his damage control officer replied, panic creeping into his voice. "Hull breaches on the port side. How is this possible? These weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate our armor." On Earth, Dr. Helen Brooks was working frantically in her underground laboratory beneath the Nevada desert. Banks of quantum computers surrounded her, their processing power focused on a single task that had seemed impossible just days ago. When the alien fleet arrived, humanity's leaders had given her one job: find a way to make their primitive weapons effective against advanced alien technology. The solution had come from an unexpected source. While analyzing the electromagnetic signatures from the alien ships, Helen had discovered that their advanced energy shields operated on quantum frequencies that could be disrupted by properly coordinated attacks. The key was synchronization and timing. "Quantum resonance network is online," Helen announced into her headset. "All Earth forces now have instantaneous coordination capability." Throughout the solar system, human ships and weapons platforms suddenly began operating as a single coordinated force. What appeared to be chaotic human attacks were actually precisely timed strikes designed to overwhelm specific points in the alien defense systems. Captain Pete Johnson led his squadron of fighters in a desperate run against the alien flagship. His pilots were terrified but determined, knowing that their families depended on stopping these invaders. The fighters carried nuclear warheads, primitive weapons by galactic standards, but delivered with a precision that the aliens never expected. "Remember your training?" Pete broadcast to his squadron. "Hit them hard and fast. Don't give them time to adapt." The human fighters dove toward the massive alien ship like arrows shot from a bow. Alien point defense systems tried to track them, but the small craft were moving in patterns that defied conventional logic. They weaved between the alien weapon beams with an unpredictability that frustrated the automated targeting systems. Pete's fighter reached the alien hull and released its nuclear payload directly against the ship's main reactor housing. The explosion that followed was small compared to the massive dreadnought, but it was placed with surgical precision. Critical systems failed throughout the alien vessel as power fluctuations cascaded through its quantum networks. "Impossible," HFY whispered, as he watched his flagship's power levels dropping. "These primitives cannot possibly understand our technology well enough to target our weak points." But the humans were doing exactly that. All across the battlespace, human forces were finding and exploiting weaknesses in alien systems that shouldn't have been vulnerable to primitive attacks. Nuclear missiles struck shield generators at the exact moment when power cycling made them vulnerable. Kinetic projectiles found gaps in armor plating that existed for only microseconds. Admiral Ben Parker coordinated the battle from his command center deep beneath the Colorado mountains. Multiple screens showed him the progress of the fight, and what he saw filled him with grim satisfaction. The aliens were powerful, but they were also predictable. Their technology was advanced, but it followed logical patterns that human minds could understand and exploit. "They're not used to fighting an enemy that learns," Admiral Parker said to his staff. "Every weapon they use teaches us something new about their capabilities, and we're very good at learning." The tide of the battle began to shift as more human vessels joined the fight. Ships that had been hidden throughout the solar system emerged from behind asteroids and moons, their crews ready to defend their homeworld. The human fleet was small, but it fought with a ferocity that shocked the alien invaders. Major Scott Williams led a group of Marines in boarding pods toward a damaged alien cruiser. His men carried conventional weapons and wore simple pressure suits, but they had something the aliens had never encountered before: the desperate courage of beings fighting for their homes and families. "Lock and load, Marines," Scott called out as their pod approached the alien hull. "We're about to show these bastards what humans do to invaders." The boarding pod cut through the alien ship's hull like a knife through paper. Scott's Marines poured into the alien vessel, their weapons firing at anything that moved. The aliens inside had never faced hand-to-hand combat with a species that refused to surrender. Back on the Dominion flagship, Commander Zexai received reports from throughout his fleet. Ships were damaged, crews were panicking, and the primitive humans were actually winning individual battles. This was supposed to be a simple conquest, not a desperate fight for survival. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," Zexai ordered, his voice shaking with disbelief. "Tell them that the humans are not as primitive as we thought. We need reinforcements immediately." As he gave that order, Zexai realized that something fundamental had changed. For the first time in Dominion history, they were the ones asking for help. The battle for Earth entered its second week, and nothing was going according to the Dominion's plans. What should have been a quick conquest had turned into a nightmare of constant fighting and impossible human tactics. Commander Zexai found himself facing an enemy that seemed to violate every known rule of warfare. Major Scott Williams crouched behind the rubble of what used to be a coffee shop in downtown Chicago. Alien drop pods had landed throughout the city 3 days ago, bringing with them soldiers in advanced armor who carried weapons that could melt through concrete. The aliens expected to find terrified civilians running in panic. Instead, they found organized resistance that turned every street into a battlefield. "Johnson, take your team around the back of that building," Scott whispered into his radio. "Martinez, set up covering fire from the overpass. We're going to show these aliens how humans fight on their home ground." The alien soldiers moved through the streets in perfect formation, their energy shields glowing blue in the morning sunlight. Their tactics were flawless by galactic standards, designed to overwhelm primitive defenders through superior technology and firepower. But they had never fought an enemy that turned the entire battlefield into a weapon. Scott's Marines didn't engage the aliens directly. Instead, they used the city itself against the invaders. Buildings became sniper nests, sewers became transportation. Tunnels and every piece of urban infrastructure became part of an elaborate trap. When the alien patrol reached the intersection of State and Madison, they walked directly into an ambush that had been prepared using nothing more than construction equipment and human creativity. The aliens' energy shields were powerful enough to stop any conventional weapon, but they had never been tested against a city bus dropped from a 40-story building. The massive vehicle crashed down on the alien formation, its weight and momentum overwhelming their personal defense systems. Before the survivors could recover, human fighters emerged from every direction, using weapons that shouldn't have been effective but somehow were. Engineer Kate Adams worked frantically in her makeshift laboratory in the basement of a destroyed electronics store. Around her, dozens of microwave ovens hummed with modified power systems. 3 days ago, she had made a discovery that was changing the entire war. The aliens' energy shields operated on specific frequencies that could be disrupted by properly coordinated electromagnetic interference. The network is online, Kate announced to her team of volunteer technicians. Every microwave oven in the city is now part of our shield disruption system. Throughout Chicago, modified household appliances created interference patterns that made the alien shields flicker and fail. The modifications spread through the internet faster than any military communication system could have managed. Within hours, humans around the world were turning their kitchen appliances into weapons of war. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had been working without sleep for 72 hours, but she couldn't stop now. In her laboratory beneath the MIT campus, she studied pieces of alien technology that had been recovered from destroyed enemy ships. What she found challenged everything humanity thought they knew about physics and engineering. "The power source is incredible," Amy said to her research team. "These aliens can generate more energy in a single reactor than our entire electrical grid produces. But their weapon systems are inefficient. They're designed for overwhelming power, not precision." The breakthrough came when Amy realized that alien energy weapons could be turned against their own power systems. Human electrical grids, when properly modified, could absorb alien energy attacks and redirect that power back at the attackers. The aliens were literally powering their own defeat. Captain Lou Martinez led his Marines through the corridors of an alien cruiser that his boarding team had captured in orbit above Earth. The ship was massive, filled with technology that seemed like magic compared to human equipment. But the aliens who built it had made one critical mistake. They assumed that primitive species couldn't learn to use advanced technology quickly. "Secure the bridge," Lou ordered his team. "Williams, get those alien computers online. Patterson, find their weapon controls. We're going to turn this ship against their own fleet." The human Marines moved through the alien vessel with the confidence of people who had nothing left to lose. Their homeworld was under attack, their families were in danger, and they were going to use every tool available to defend what they loved. If that meant learning to operate alien technology in the middle of a battle, then that's what they would do. Back on Earth, the transformation was remarkable. Cities that had been targeted for easy conquest were becoming fortresses that the aliens couldn't crack. Every major urban area now bristled with hybrid defense systems that combined human engineering with captured alien technology. The planet that was supposed to be a simple prize had become an impregnable stronghold. General Paul Wright coordinated the global defense from his command bunker beneath the Pentagon. Multiple screens showed him battles raging across 6 continents, and the news was better than anyone had dared to hope. Human forces were not just holding their ground, they were pushing the aliens back. "Sir, we're receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations," his aide announced. "More alien ships are approaching the solar system." General Wright studied the tactical display, seeing the new threats marked in red as they approached. Earth's outer defenses. But instead of feeling fear, he felt something that would have surprised the Galactic Dominion Council. He felt confident. "Alert all defense forces," Wright ordered, "and send a message to our new space-based assets. It's time to show these aliens that humans don't just defend their home, we take the fight to the enemy." High above Earth's atmosphere, human ships that shouldn't have existed were moving toward the approaching alien reinforcements. These vessels had been built in orbital shipyards using a combination of human manufacturing techniques and alien technology. They were crewed by Dominion standards, but they were fast, maneuverable, and crewed by humans who had learned to fight in 3 dimensions. Captain Nina Clark commanded the first human deep space squadron from the bridge of a ship that had been assembled from scavenged alien parts and human engineering. Her crew consisted of former airline pilots, submarine officers, and anyone else who could adapt to 3-dimensional combat. They had been training for exactly 3 days, but they approached the alien reinforcements with the confidence of veterans. "All ships, this is Nina," she broadcast to her squadron. "Remember what we learned from the captured alien tactical manuals. Their ships are powerful, but they follow predictable patterns. We're going to hit them fast and hard before they reach Earth. The human squadron attacked the alien reinforcements with tactics that had never been seen in galactic warfare. Instead of the formal battle lines that the Dominion expected, the human ships fought like a pack of wolves, using speed and coordination to overwhelm individual targets before moving on to the next. Commander HFY watched the destruction of his reinforcement fleet from his damaged flagship and finally understood what he was facing. These humans didn't just fight with their weapons and technology. They fought with their minds, adapting and learning faster than any species he had ever encountered. Every battle taught them something new, and they used that knowledge to become more dangerous. Send another message to the Galactic Council, HFY ordered, his voice filled with desperation. Tell them that we need to withdraw immediately. These humans are not a primitive species. They're something we've never seen before. As he sent that message, reports arrived from around the galaxy. Other species were beginning to take notice of the human resistance. Worlds that had been conquered by the Dominion were asking questions that hadn't been asked in centuries. If these primitive humans could stand against the mighty Dominion fleet, what did that say about the Empire's supposed invincibility? The war for Earth had become something much larger than anyone had expected. It had become the beginning of a galactic revolution. 3 weeks had passed since the Dominion fleet first arrived at Earth, and Commander HFY could barely recognize the battlefield anymore. What began as a simple conquest had transformed into something that defied all military logic. The primitive humans were not just defending their world anymore. They were winning. Colonel Dan Foster stood on the bridge of what used to be a Dominion heavy cruiser, now flying under human command. Around him, his crew worked at alien control stations with the casual efficiency of people who had been operating this technology for years instead of days. The ship's original owners were either dead or imprisoned in the cargo hold, victims of their own arrogance. Take us to attack position, Dunn ordered his helmsman, a former commercial pilot named Steve who had learned to fly spaceships by watching alien prisoners operate their controls. Target their supply convoy? We're going to cut off their reinforcements before they reach the main battle group. The human-controlled alien ship moved through space with deadly grace, its hybrid crew combining human tactical thinking with alien technology. In the 3 weeks since the invasion began, humans had captured dozens of enemy vessels and put them back into service against their former owners. The sight of their own ships attacking them was breaking Dominion morale faster than any weapon. On Earth, Dr. Alex Turner had finally cracked the alien communication codes after weeks of sleepless work. The breakthrough came when he realized that the aliens used quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication across vast distances. Once he understood the basic principles, human computer networks could tap into their command structure. "We're in," Alex announced to the team of hackers and programmers working around him. "We now have access to their tactical communications network. We can see every order they send and every report they receive." The implications were staggering. Human forces could now predict alien movements, intercept their supply runs, and set traps based on information from the enemy's own command system. The technological advantage that the Dominion had relied on for centuries was being turned against them by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Captain Nina Clark led her deep space squadron in a raid on the alien staging area near Jupiter. Her ships, built from salvaged alien technology and human engineering, moved like sharks through the darkness between the gas giants' moons. The alien supply depot had been constructed to support a long occupation of Earth, but it was about to become humanity's greatest prize. "Remember the plan?" Nina broadcast to her squadron commanders. "We hit the fuel storage tanks first, then the ammunition depots. Leave the command ship for last. We want to capture their senior officers alive." The human attack came without warning, striking from multiple directions with tactics that the aliens had never encountered. Instead of the frontal assaults that most species used, the humans employed deception, misdirection, and psychological warfare to maximum effect. By the time the alien defenders realized they were under attack, half their facility was already destroyed, the captured alien officers would later tell interrogators that fighting humans was like battling ghosts. The enemy appeared where they couldn't be, struck where they were weakest, and vanished before effective countermeasures could be deployed. Human tactics seemed to violate every principle of civilized warfare. Back on the Dominion flagship, Commander Zexhai received increasingly desperate reports from throughout his scattered fleet. Human forces were appearing everywhere, using captured alien ships and modified human vessels to conduct raids deep behind enemy lines. The invasion force that was supposed to be conquering Earth was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that learned faster than any species had the right to. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council," his communications officer reported. Zexhai activated the secure channel, expecting orders for withdrawal or massive reinforcements. Instead, he found himself facing Ambassador Veltar, whose blue face showed the strain of trying to explain the impossible to his superiors. "Commander, the Council demands a full explanation of your continued failures," Veltar said, his 6 arms gesturing with barely controlled anger. "How is it possible that a primitive species is defeating the finest fleet in Dominion history?" "These humans are not primitive," Zexhai replied, his voice carrying the weariness of a soldier who had seen too much. "They adapt to our technology faster than we can deploy it. They learn our tactics and counter them within hours. They fight with a creativity and determination that we have never encountered." "Impossible," Veltar snapped. "Our intelligence." REPORTS clearly indicated that humans were a backward species with no significant military capabilities. "Your intelligence reports were wrong," Zexhai said flatly. "These beings fight like no species we have ever faced. They use their primitive technology in ways that defeat our advanced systems. They turn our own weapons against us. And they never surrender, no matter how hopeless their situation appears." On Earth, the transformation was complete. Every major city now served as a fortress world, protected by hybrid defense systems that combined the best of human and alien technology. Factories that had been producing consumer goods were now turning out weapons and spacecraft that incorporated captured alien innovations with human manufacturing techniques. General Paul Wright reviewed the latest intelligence reports in his command bunker and allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The planet that was supposed to be conquered in hours had become the center of a growing human empire. Colonies were being established throughout the solar system, each one protected by fleets that grew stronger every day. "Sir, we're receiving communications from several alien species," his aide reported. "They're requesting meetings with our diplomatic representatives." Wright studied the list of species requesting contact and realized that something remarkable was happening. Word of humanity's resistance had spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring other conquered peoples to consider rebellion against Dominion rule. The humans had become a symbol of hope for species that had forgotten what freedom meant. Captain Pete Johnson, now commanding a squadron of hybrid fighters, led an attack on the Dominion's main supply line near Mars. His pilots, veterans of dozens of battles, flew ships that incorporated the best elements of human and alien design. They moved with the precision of a surgical instrument, cutting through alien defenses like they were made of paper. The psychological impact on the remaining Dominion forces was devastating. These aliens had conquered hundreds of worlds through overwhelming technological superiority, but they had never faced an enemy that could match and then exceed their capabilities through pure ingenuity. Desertions began among the younger alien species who had joined the Dominion for easy victory and quick advancement. Major Scott Williams, now serving as humanity's chief military advisor for captured alien technology, studied the latest intelligence reports from deep space monitoring stations. New alien fleets were approaching the solar system, but these weren't Dominion reinforcements. They were ships from species that had declared independence from the Galactic Empire, coming to join the Human Alliance. "It's working," Scott told his staff. "The revolution is spreading. Every day, more species are breaking free from Dominion control. What started as an invasion of Earth has become a galactic war of liberation." The reports arriving at Dominion Headquarters painted a picture of empire-wide collapse. Systems that had been loyal for centuries were declaring independence. Trade routes were being disrupted by rebel forces using tactics learned from human military advisors. The most powerful empire in galactic history was falling apart because they had underestimated a single species, Commander Zexhai, now commanding less than half of his original fleet, made a decision that would have been unthinkable just weeks ago. He opened a communication channel to Earth's military command and requested a meeting under a flag of truce. The Dominion's greatest military leader was ready to discuss surrender terms with the primitive species he had come to conquer. As he prepared for that humiliating conversation, Zexhai reflected on the lessons he had learned too late. Technology alone was not enough to guarantee victory. The ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight with desperate creativity was worth more than all the advanced weapons in the galaxy. The humans had taught the Dominion a lesson that would echo through history. Never underestimate a species fighting for its freedom. 6 months after the invasion began, Ambassador Veltar stood before the Galactic Dominion Council in complete disgrace. The crystal chamber that had once been filled with confident voices, planning easy conquests, now echoed with angry shouts and desperate arguments. The primitive human world that was supposed to become another conquered territory had instead become the spark that ignited a galaxy-wide revolution. "Explain to us how this happened," Council Leader Morden demanded, his massive gray form looming over the assembly. "How did a species that barely knew how to travel between planets defeat our finest fleet and inspire half the galaxy to rebel against us?" Veltar's 6 arms trembled as he activated the holographic display. Instead of showing the peaceful blue world they had discussed months ago, the image revealed a fortress planet bristling with hybrid defense systems. Human colonies now dotted the entire solar system, protected by fleets that combined the best of alien technology with human innovation. "The humans proved to be unlike any species we have encountered," Veltar began, his voice lacking its former confidence. "Their capacity for adaptation and learning exceeded all our projections. Within days of first contact, they were using our own technology against us more effectively than we could use it ourselves." "Impossible," snarled Counselor Jexmal, his insect features twitching with disbelief. "No primitive species could master advanced Dominion technology so quickly." "The evidence speaks for itself," Veltar replied, changing the display to show battle footage from the war. Human fighters piloted captured alien ships with deadly precision, while hybrid vessels built from salvaged technology outmaneuvered the finest Dominion warships. They did not simply copy our technology, they improved it. In the months following the failed invasion, the humans had done something that no conquered species had ever accomplished. They had not only defended their homeworld, but had begun expanding throughout their local sector. Human colonies were spreading like wildfire, each one serving as a beacon of hope for other species yearning for freedom. President Karen Martinez stood before the United Nations Assembly in New York, her words being broadcast across the galaxy through captured alien communication networks. Her message was simple but revolutionary. Humanity sought peaceful coexistence with all species, but would defend themselves and their allies against any force that threatened their freedom. "We did not choose this war," President Martinez declared, her voice carrying the strength of a species that had discovered its true potential. "But we have learned something important from it. Freedom is not something that can be given or taken away by others. It must be earned and defended by those who value it most." The response to her speech was immediate and overwhelming. Across the galaxy, species that had been subjugated by the Dominion for centuries began declaring their independence. They had seen what humans could accomplish when fighting for their freedom, and they wanted that same opportunity for themselves. Dr. Lisa Carter, now head of the Human Diplomatic Corps, worked around the clock to establish contact with the growing number of species seeking alliance with Earth. Her office had become the center of a diplomatic revolution that was reshaping the entire galaxy. Every day brought new requests for military assistance, technological cooperation, and defensive pacts. "We're receiving delegations from over 50 different species," Lisa reported to the president during their daily briefing. They all want the same thing: freedom from dominion rule and the chance to determine their own destiny among the stars. The offer humanity made to these species was straightforward and unprecedented in galactic history. Shared technology, mutual defense agreements, and complete autonomy for all member worlds. There would be no conquest, no forced tribute, and no central authority demanding obedience. It was a concept so foreign to galactic politics that many species initially couldn't understand it. Commander XI, now a prisoner of war on Earth, spent his days being interviewed by human military historians who wanted to understand Dominion tactics and technology. The conversations had become something unexpected, a mutual exchange of military philosophy between two very different approaches to warfare. Your species fights with something we had forgotten existed, XI told Colonel Jake Morrison during one of their sessions. You fight not just with weapons and technology, but with the absolute conviction that your cause is just. That gives you a strength that no amount of advanced equipment can match. Jake nodded thoughtfully. The alien commander had proven to be surprisingly honorable in defeat, providing valuable intelligence about Dominion weaknesses and helping humanity understand the broader galactic political situation. We fight for our families, our homes, and our right to choose our own path, Jake replied. Those are things worth dying for. Your Dominion offers power and wealth, but it demands absolute obedience in return. Most species will choose freedom over comfort when given the choice. Reports from across the galaxy confirmed Jake's assessment. System after system was declaring independence from Dominion rule, often using tactics and strategies learned from human military advisors. The empire that had ruled for over 1,000 years was crumbling as its subject species discovered that resistance was possible. On the Dominion capital world of Zephyros Prime, Council Leader Morden reviewed intelligence reports that painted a picture of complete strategic collapse. Trade routes were disrupted, loyal worlds were in rebellion, and the Dominion fleet was scattered across dozens of systems trying to maintain control over an empire that was dissolving from within. How many systems have we lost this week? Morden asked his aide, though he dreaded the answer. 17 have declared independence, sir, the aide replied nervously. And we're receiving reports of human military advisors operating in at least 30 more systems. They're teaching other species the same tactics they used to defeat our forces at Earth. The irony was bitter beyond measure. In seeking to conquer what they thought was the weakest species in the galaxy, the Dominion had awakened the strongest. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their tactics, but their ability to inspire others to fight for something greater than themselves. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, now leading humanity's Advanced Technology Research Division, made regular broadcasts to the galaxy explaining human scientific principles and encouraging open cooperation between all species. Her message was revolutionary. Knowledge should be shared freely, not hoarded by those in power. Science belongs to everyone, Amy declared during one of her transmissions. When we work together and share our discoveries, we all become stronger. The old way of keeping technology secret to maintain control over others is ending. We're entering an age of cooperation and mutual advancement. The response to her broadcasts exceeded all expectations. Scientists from hundreds of species began sharing their research with human laboratories, creating an explosion of technological advancement that benefited everyone. Diseases that had plagued entire worlds for centuries were cured within months. Planets that had been considered uninhabitable were transformed into thriving colonies. Admiral Ben Parker, now commanding humanity's expanding space fleet, received a communication that would have seemed impossible just months ago. The message came from the Dominion Council itself, requesting a meeting to discuss peace terms. They want to negotiate, Admiral Parker told President Martinez during an emergency cabinet meeting. After centuries of ruling through fear and intimidation, they're finally ready to admit that their empire is finished. The meeting took place in neutral space, aboard a space station built jointly by humans and their new allies. Council Leader Morden, once the most powerful being in the galaxy, sat across from President Martinez and tried to salvage something from the wreckage of his empire. What do you want from us? Morden asked, his voice heavy with defeat. Nothing, President Martinez replied, her answer shocking the alien leader. We don't want to rule your empire or take revenge for your attack on Earth. We simply want you to leave us and our allies alone. Every species has the right to choose its own government and determine its own future. The concept was so foreign to Dominion thinking that Morden struggled to understand it. In his experience, the strong always dominated the weak. The idea that humans would refuse to exploit their victory was incomprehensible. You could rule the galaxy, Morden said. Your technology, combined with your tactical abilities, makes you virtually unstoppable. Why do you not take what you have earned through conquest? Because that's not who we are, President Martinez answered simply. We fight to protect our freedom, not to take it from others. The galaxy is big enough for everyone to find their own way among the stars. As the peace negotiations concluded, humanity faced a choice that would define their role in galactic civilization. They had proven themselves capable of defeating any enemy and inspiring countless species to fight for their freedom. The question now was what they would do with the power they had gained. The answer came in the form of the Galactic Freedom Alliance, a voluntary association of species committed to mutual defense and cooperation. Unlike the Dominion's empire based on fear and domination, the alliance was founded on principles that had once seemed primitive: liberty, equality, and the right of all.